Today we're going to be looking at points, lines, and planes and trying to get a better understanding of how to draw them, how we name them, and just different facts about them. Make sure you're following along closely in your guided notes. We are going to start by focusing on point. You can draw a point as a dot. So let's, in this model box, go ahead and draw a dot. You name a point by the capital letter, so by a capital letter. So for this point, let's just use a P. So this is point P. And actually down here for my words and my symbols, I would call it point P. Or sometimes you might just say P. A point has neither shape nor size. It doesn't actually exist right there as something you can see. It's just holding that point, if you will, holding a place. If you look over at line, you draw a line with an arrowhead at each end. So we know lines straight with an arrowhead at each end. Okay. You name them. One way is with the lowercase script. So let's go ahead and do that option. Let's maybe name this line, let's say N. So script is like a cursive letter. The other option would be to name it by the letters representing the points on the line. So the letters representing the points on the line. Okay, so we don't have any letters on here, so let's go ahead, or points, put some points, A and point B. So when I actually write it out with words, I can call it line N, or I could use those points. I could say line AB, or I could actually even say line BA. A lot of the times, to not have to write as much, because as math people, we try to abbreviate as much as possible. You might write it as line AB with the letters AB, so I know those are the points on it, and a line over it. And remember, a line is an arrowhead at each end, so you need an arrow on both ends. Or you could do it as line BA, so B would come first, but you still have the arrows on the line above that. A fact about a line is there is exactly one line through any 2 points. Sometimes I'll pause the video like that so that I can write stuff down. Feel free at any point to pause the video as well so that you have time to write down what I'm saying. All right, over in plane, I don't have any information about how it's drawn, so let's fill that in. It is drawn, as a shaded, slanted, four-sided figure. So it'll be shaded, it'll be slanted, and it'll have 4 sides. All right, now it's hard to shade it as we draw it and still see everything that's going to go on inside of it. So when you see a picture of it in your book especially, it will be shaded. When you draw one, you do not need to shade it, but you do need to make it slanted and with 4 sides. So here's my plane. You can name them by the letters naming 3 non-collinear points. So I need at least 3 points on here that do not make a line. Another way to name it is by using a capital script letter, and we'll do that in a second. Let's focus on this one here. So I need these points to actually have letters so that I can talk about them. So we're going to call that point X, Y, sorry, that point X, that point Y, and that point Z. So if I wanted to name this plane, I could call it plane XYZ. I could call it plane XZY. I could call it plane YXZ. I could call it plane YZX. I could call it plane ZXY. Are we noticing a pattern here? I could call it plane ZYX. It doesn't matter what order you put those letters in, as long as you have 3 of them representing points that are in the plane. Sometimes, instead of having to write out all the letters, there will be a script letter sometimes, like a T. Remember, script is like cursive. So that would be one way to name it. So named by a capital script letter. That goes right here. So down here, I could also call that plane T. And there is only one plane through any 3 non-collinear points. So if I have 3 points that are not on a line, there's only one plane that actually contains all 3 of them. Based on everything we just went over, I want you to pause this in a second and try to answer these questions on your own, or fill in the blanks. Okay, a point is the first blank. It is simply a location or a marker. A line is made up of points and has no thickness or width. Points on the same line are said to be collinear because they share that line. A plane is a flat surface made up of points. Points that lie on the same plane are said to be coplanar, and a plane has no depth and extends infinitely in all directions. So just like if several points are on one line, they're called collinear. If you have several points on the same plane, they're called coplanar. On this first example, I want you to name each of these things. So name a line containing points. So that would be this line over here. You can use any of those points over there to name it, or you can use that lowercase letter. Go ahead and do that on your own, and then I'll put up some answers. You could have called it line L, line AB, line AC, line AD, line BC, line BD, line CD, or the reverse of all of those. So line BA. Make sure if you're using 2 points to name the line that you do have the line over top of it with arrows on each end. And again, the reverse of any of those ones using 2 points would be fine. Next, I want you to name the plane that contains point C. And you can see that plane drawn there. Okay, these are just a couple of the ways you could name that plane. You could use that script letter and name it plane N, or you could use 3 non-collinear points and name the plane. It just has to be points that are not all on that same line. So plane ABE is fine, BDE. Notice that since E is the only point not on the line, it has to be included when naming this plane. Do make sure that when naming a line or a plane, you know how to name it multiple ways. Okay, for example 2, I want you on your own to draw and label a figure that goes with this following relationship. So pause this and try to do it on your own first. All right, it says line TU lies in plane Q and contains point R. So I need plane Q. So let's go ahead and draw my plane. I need to label it as plane Q. The line TU is somewhere in that plane. So T and U need to both be on that line. And it says that the line also contains point R, so I need to put point R on that line as well. Your picture does not have to look exactly like this, but the line does need to be inside the plane, and all 3 points need to be on that line. This third example, you're going to use this figure. How many planes appear in this figure? So think to yourself and see how many planes you can come up with. Right, there are 4 planes in this picture. The first one is probably the most obvious one to you, plane P. But each side of that 3-dimensional figure also makes up a plane. So if you want to think of that like front side is plane A, B, D. That like back right triangle, so this one back over there, would be plane B, C, D. And then the back left one, which would be this plane right there, would be plane A, C, D. Okay, 3 points that are collinear, so I'm looking for all 3 points that are on the same line. So that would be over here with D, G, and B. So points D, G, and B. Then it wants to know if points G, A, B, and E are coplanar, and to explain. So let's first locate them. G, A, B, and E. Okay, G, A, and B are all kind of on that front triangle, so they are coplanar, but since E is over here, it is not. So that is going to be a no, and I'm going to let you put that in your own words. Again, pointing out that some of the points are coplanar, but one of them is not. At what point do line EF and AB intersect? So line EF is going straight up and down, and line AB is over here. What point do they intersect? Well, as far as I can tell, they don't intersect. So they don't. And if you look at it, AB lines in that bottom plane there, plane P, but if I'm looking at line EF, only E is actually in that same plane. So E is not going to be where they intersect, so those two are never going to cross. The dotted part over here is underneath the plane. It's behind it, so you can't actually see it.